Texans continues with both sides dug in about his future. Late last week, we learned from Dan Graziano that Watson met with new Texans head coach David Culley and told him he has no intention of suiting up for the team ever again. And so it does feel like this is one of these we got to take the temperature of every single day. Graziano, where do we stand right now as far as the stalemate, the standoff between Deshaun Watson and his team?
Still a stalemate, Greeny. Nothing really new. I wish there was. I asked people, look, Greeny's going to be disappointed in me. I got to give him something new. That's why I was so excited about the Culley note last week. But right now, the Houston Texans are still telling teams they don't want to trade him, and Watson is still telling the Texans and anybody who listens who's close to him that he's not going to play for them anymore. So when does something change? Does Houston decide they have to do this before the draft so they can get picks this year to help replenish? Remember, they don't have a first or second round pick. Or do they wait until after June 1st when it might not cost as much to trade him in terms of the salary cap? Do they call his bluff and see if he's willing to sit out games in September? There's a lot of different ways this could go, but right now, all we're hearing is Houston says they're not going to trade him. He says he doesn't want to be there.
It's a fascinating story. And Cam Jordan, for those of us on the outside who cover the sport, this has consumed so much of our time. As a current player in the league, I just wonder, what is your perspective on this, and what do you hear from other players about this situation?
I mean, the last couple of years have been sort of tough for, the Texans. You talk about you let D-Hop go to the Cardinals for a bag of potato chips and not even a soda on the way out. You talk about one of the best players in the league and you just let him go. So for Deshaun Watson to ask for a trade and not be given it, it's a little confusing. It's slowly becoming. I mean, you see J.J. Watt go to the Cardinals. You slowly seeing the Texans become one of these teams that guys may not be really wanting to go to in free agency. This is slowly becoming teams where you can see, the organization have some problems up top, and guys are trying to get out. You had, Kenny Stills last year asked for his release. You've got a lot of different other players just talking about, trying to get somewhere else, and now it's starting to show. D-Hop looks like he's happy in Arizona. But, I mean, this is just something that is slowly turning, and you've got to turn this page. I mean, I get they got a new GM. They're going to have a new head coach. This is something that, hopefully they can turn around quick, because if not, it can get to be a desolate place. And that's, when the players deem it a place that they don't want to go to, it's not going to look good in the future.
Fascinating. So let me just be clear what we're talking about. You think that they need to get this situation resolved one way or the other, get it out of the zeitgeist, if you will, get it out of everybody's topic of conversation so they can move forward and so players around the league will stop thinking about it.
Absolutely. I mean, come on. D. Watt is one of these guys that can change your franchise, and he's a face of your franchise currently. Make it right. In my mind, I'm always going to think that loyalty runs both ways, but we know it's a business at the end of the day.
What do you think of this, Marcus? Again, you were a player and not so long ago. You understand those dynamics. How do you think this is impacting the way players across the National Football League view the Texans organization?
Gee, I think Cam just made a hell of a point, and it brought to my thought, like, these are in-house players. These are guys that were drafted by the Texans. So it looks even worse to guys that you're trying to go out and pursue. Look, trading Deshaun Watson is the best avenue for the Houston Texans. Not only can you get a young quarterback potentially within that trade, you can also start to kind of recreate your perception across the league, or recreate your identity. And that's what the Houston Texans need to do. They have their in-house guys leaving. These aren't guys that came in free agency and then realized or experienced that it was bad. These are guys that were drafted, that have had a lot of success in that franchise. The faces of the franchise and the organization. Like, it's a big indictment that J.J. Watt is out of Houston and did not want to deal with them as far as staying there and trying to be a part of what they're trying to do. That was a huge deal. I know we passed it off, it was a lot of money on the books and they were going to release him anyway. That ain't how the faces of franchises get let go. That is not how it operates. I guarantee you this, the Saints and Cam Jordan going to have a conversation about a good departure. How will this be better for both of us? How will this look? J.J. Watt was like, I want to get out of here. I want to bounce. That's bad. It's an indictment that the face of your franchise, the quarterback, wants out. It's an indictment that the former face of your franchise is telling the face of the franchise, meaning Andre Johnson telling Deshaun Watson, stand your ground. Like, this is... The Houston Texans are in a bad spot from a football perspective when they talk about Deshaun Watson leaving. But I thought Cam just made a hell of a point. When guys start looking at that place and say, this is what they do to the guys that they drafted, and this is what they doing to the guys that's been the faces of the Houston Texans franchise, it is going to become a desolate place if they don't get a handle on it quick and get Deshaun Watson traded in the best interest of Deshaun Watson.
It's a really important point. If you look, they haven't been in existence that long, but the four players who define that franchise, who come to mind immediately, are Andre Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson, and J.J. Watt. You do the math. Okay, so that's where they stand right now in Houston. Now, what is new for next season in the NFL? Well, how about this? We are looking at the very likely possibility of 17 instead of 16 regular season games. That, of course, became possible last March when the players ratified a new collective bargaining agreement deal with the owners. And we went through all of that last March, but that's a very long time ago, Dan, and so much has happened since then. In a nutshell, take everybody through how we get from where we are right now to 17 games this coming season.
Yeah, it's all ready to go, Greeny. I mean, it would be shocking if they didn't play 17 regular season games this year at this point. Everything's spelled out in the CBA in terms of how the schedules, or how the pay schedule is adjusted for players. It says that if the owners get one new media rights deal done, they are able to trigger the 17-game season as early as 2021. The owners voted in December on how the schedule would work, like how the extra game would play out. You'd play a team from the other conference that finished in the same spot in the standings that you did, and then they'd alternate year to year. The AFC would have the home games one year, NFC the other. So it's ready to go. As soon as those TV deals are done, I think it would be very, very surprising if the owners didn't use their option to trigger the 17-game season and make it start in 2021.
So let's call this sneaky big news, candidly. It's enormous. The entire sport is going through an enormous change this coming year, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of conversation about it. Cam Jordan, you're an active player. How do you feel about a 17th regular season game?
Doesn't matter how I feel. I mean, once it was put in the actual, legal jargon of a CBA, that is what it is. I mean, you could ask me 2 years ago how I feel about it. At this point, we know it's inevitable. So if it happens 2021, we'll get ready for 2021. We knew it was going to happen sometime, in the next couple of years. So this year, fine. This is something that we have to deal with. Marcus will tell you, anybody will tell you in the league, it takes a lot to get the body right. And if you want to go 17 games, you have to make it worth it. It seems like they figured that out in CBA, so now we just have to deal with it. They've already added, one extra game or however it works in the playoffs. This is just something that we have to deal with as players. And going forward, it gives you a little bit more opportunity maybe to increase those stat lines. Give that extra push for a playoff push. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care how many games it takes us. As long as we have a great position for a run at the Super Bowl, as long as you end up in the playoffs, whatever it takes.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many implications of this, including that one, the way that statistics will now be skewed forever. Changing the number of games in a season in sports does not happen particularly often. So it's a bigger deal than I think people are making of it. Marcus Spears, what do you think?
Well, G, I hate it. I mean, look, I think about Cam and those